This is Whisper from History, where forgotten voices rise again. If you missed our 32-episode Season 1, Dark History, watch the full playlist on our channel. Every signal tells a story. But what happens when those signals don't come from the living but from voices that were never meant to return? This is the tale of the static whispers that echoed through police radios, changing the lives of officers forever. Stay till the end and uncover the truth behind this chilling mystery. The rain came down in thin, icy threads over the city of Detroit. 1987, inside a dimly lit patrol car. Officer Raymond Keller adjusted the crackling radio, his partner staring into the endless glow of the streetlights cutting through the fog. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Copy." A pause, then static, not the usual hiss. This was layered, uneven, almost rhythmic. Raymond frowned. The radio clicked again, faint voices bleeding through the noise, like whispers carried through metal. It wasn't dispatch. It wasn't anyone on their channel. "Help us." Raymond froze. He turned the volume knob silence. Then, faintly again, "Don't let him in." His partner, Officer Price, gave a short laugh. Probably kids with a ham radio. Ignore it. But Raymond couldn't. There was something in that voice. It sounded scared, real, human. He reported it later that night, only to find that 3 other precincts had logged similar interference. Different channels. Same message. "Help us. Don't let him in." No one ever traced the signal. No one could. By the late 1980s, police departments across the Midwest began to notice odd transmissions. They started quietly, barely audible distortions, bursts of static that carried what seemed like fragments of speech. At first, no one paid attention. Police radios often caught stray signals, CB chatter, air traffic bleed, even maintenance bands, but these weren't ordinary. In many cases, the messages came during critical moments, during chases, during arrests, during nights when officers reported eerie, almost supernatural coincidences. A patrol car's dashboard camera would malfunction at the same second the voices came through. Streetlights flickered out, as if synchronized, and more than once. The voices spoke names, officers' names. In 1991, in a small Ohio town near Mansfield, Officer Carla Reyes was driving along Route 42 when her radio erupted in a violent hiss. "Carla?" She slammed the brakes. The voice was faint, buried beneath the static, but unmistakably female. "Carla, stop." She stared at the radio, breath trembling. "Dispatch, is that you?" No reply. Seconds later, a pickup truck swerved into her lane, missing her by inches. Her dash recorder captured only the screech of tires, and then that same static whisper, repeating softly, almost like a lullaby. "Carla, stop." When analyzed, the audio revealed something chilling. The frequency didn't match any known broadcast band in the area. It existed between frequencies, a sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum used by no official service. Experts called it an anomaly. Locals called it a warning from the dead. By the mid-1990s, stories like Carla's had spread to police forums, late-night radio shows, and internal bulletins. Some officers swore the voices came from fallen colleagues, voices of those killed in the line of duty. Others believed it was electronic bleed from emergency channels or dispatch replay loops. But there was a problem with that explanation. The technology of the time couldn't produce live coherent voices across multiple frequencies without shared hardware. And yet, across counties, even across states, identical messages appeared. "He's already inside. Get out of the car. Don't answer the call." Sometimes, the messages even predicted events. One night in 1994, an officer in rural Indiana received a voice transmission saying, "Blue Crown Vic, don't approach." Minutes later, he pulled over a Blue Crown Victoria and was shot at before he could exit the vehicle. The report was filed as coincidence, but deep down he knew it wasn't. Police radio engineers started conducting frequency sweeps. They discovered strange bursts of narrowband interference, but they didn't behave like normal static. These bursts had structured peaks and troughs that mirrored the cadence of human speech, yet they didn't align with any known modulation format. A technician described it best. It's like the signal is speaking, but not to us. Fast forward to 2003. In New Mexico, State Trooper Michael Lang recorded one of the clearest instances ever captured. At 2:47 a.m., during a routine patrol near the desert highway, his in-car recorder picked up 3 words, "Behind you, Mike." Seconds later, a car without headlights appeared in his rearview mirror, speeding directly toward him. Lang swerved off the shoulder, barely avoiding collision. The pursuing car disappeared into the darkness, never identified. His dashcam footage, once slowed down, revealed something else, a faint silhouette reflected in the rear glass. Motionless, as if someone sat in the back seat, but Lang was alone. When he turned around, the seat was empty. The static returned, humming softly, like a breathing pattern through the speaker. Over the next few years, hundreds of similar cases surfaced across the US, the UK, even parts of Eastern Europe. Different languages, different systems, but the same tone, the same frequency band, and often, the same phrases. Researchers dubbed it the Phantom Channel, a band of radio frequencies that shouldn't exist, appearing between regulated ranges, vanishing as soon as anyone tried to trace it. Some skeptics suggested atmospheric skip, a rare phenomenon where signals bounce unpredictably between ionospheric layers, causing cross-channel interference. But atmospheric skip couldn't explain the timing. The messages almost always arrived during life or death moments, moments of tension, moments of fear. In 2007, an investigation by a small podcast out of Chicago obtained 47 audio clips from active police archives. Every clip had been officially logged as unidentified signal disturbance, but when played in sequence, a disturbing pattern emerged. Each transmission began with a short burst of white noise, followed by a 2-second gap. Then, a voice, always faint, always trembling. The words varied slightly, but their message stayed consistent. "It's not over. They can hear us. Stop the broadcast." The hosts invited former technicians and linguists to decode them. One expert discovered the voices contained low-frequency undertones, as if multiple speakers overlapped, not one voice, but many. Hundreds of faint whispers, layered into one. When the frequencies were separated, they formed a strange sequence of tones, identical to the distress signal pattern used by World War II field radios. But that system hadn't been in use for over half a century. That's when historians entered the picture. They dug into old military archives and uncovered something eerie during World War II. Allied signal corpsmen reported unexplained transmissions they called ghost echoes, Morse code that came from no origin point, voices that spoke from empty bands, and messages like, "You're not alone in this frequency." Many dismissed them as misfires, but one British intelligence officer, Captain Henry Cawthorne, theorized that these signals were recorded fragments imprints of strong emotional energy caught in the electromagnetic field during battle. He believed that radio waves, once transmitted, never fully die. They linger, bending and scattering endlessly until conditions make them audible again, like ghosts trapped in static. Could the same phenomenon explain the modern cases? Were these voices echoes from the past? In 2010, a physics researcher from Caltech, Dr. Lena Okafor, began analyzing old police recordings using spectral analysis. She found something extraordinary. Several of the mysterious voices aligned with historical events that happened at the exact same coordinates. One recording from Michigan. 1987, the night Officer Keller first heard "Help Us" showed faint electromagnetic spikes at the same frequency used by an old civil defense network from the 1950s. The catch: that transmitter had been decommissioned decades earlier, and yet, on stormy nights, the same frequency would pulse for exactly 13 seconds, then vanish. No tower, no source, just energy. Officers who experienced the phenomena often described more than just sound. They spoke of feeling watched, of sudden chills, of headlights flickering out when the voices came through. One deputy from Arkansas swore he saw figures like silhouettes made of smoke, standing on the side of the highway whenever the static surged. He stopped reporting it after his superiors laughed it off. But privately, many officers began recording everything. Dozens of those tapes would later be leaked online, faint, crackling whispers buried in noise, each different, yet hauntingly similar. Some called out names, some issued warnings, but one stood apart. A 2012 recording from Pennsylvania, captured by Trooper Alan Graves. The message: "Stop transmitting. You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't until 2016 that Graves realized the voice was his own, distorted, aged, echoing through a storm of static. He had never said those words, yet the voice was an exact match: tone, inflection, everything. How could a radio broadcast his own voice from the future? As word spread, theories multiplied. Some pointed to time-shifted radio waves, signals refracted through magnetic storms that replay fragments from earlier transmissions, sometimes decades later. Others leaned towards something more chilling: psychic resonance, a belief that intense human emotions, fear, panic, death can imprint themselves into electromagnetic fields, replaying under specific conditions. Perhaps psychologists called it residual haunting, but to the police who heard it firsthand, it wasn't theory, it was real. In 2019, during wildfires in California, several fire command frequencies experienced similar disturbances. Amid the roar of dispatch chatter came faint, "Please, we can't get out. It's closing in." At first, operators assumed these were distress calls from trapped firefighters, but no such teams were in that area. When investigators cross-referenced coordinates, they discovered those exact words had been transmitted 5 years earlier. During the 2014 Valley Fire, in the same location, it was an identical recording. No one could explain how it reappeared, live, on an active channel. There's something deeply unsettling about the idea that our technology, our radios, our signals, our frequencies might be haunted not by spirits, but by the very energy of human fear. Each transmission, a loop of suffering, repeating endlessly through the ether. Some believe these voices aren't reaching out to us, they're simply trapped. Echoes of lost signals, replaying the last moments of someone's life, frozen in a cycle of electromagnetic decay. Others think differently. They say, the voices respond. A retired dispatcher in Florida once claimed that when she spoke to one calmly, softly the static faded, and the voice whispered back, "Thank you for hearing me." She'll quit the next day. In modern times, digital systems have largely replaced analog police radios. Encrypted, filtered, data compressed, supposedly immune to interference. And yet, the reports haven't stopped. In 2022, a viral Reddit post by a paramedic in Kansas City described how their new digital scanner emitted a woman's voice crying for help, audible only 4 seconds, but captured on multiple devices. Audio experts confirmed the clip wasn't faked. Its frequency modulation pattern didn't match any digital codec. It was, in their words, analog interference without analog equipment, which shouldn't be possible. Some researchers have begun calling these phenomena temporal static events, moments when overlapping time signatures cause fragments of past transmissions to reappear. If true, that means every sound ever broadcast still exists, somewhere faint, scattered, waiting for the right conditions to return. And perhaps, sometimes, those conditions involve us, because there's one detail often overlooked in nearly every verified report. The transmissions occurred during heightened emotional stress, officers in danger, moments of fear, moments of death. It's as if the energy of those situations summoned the echoes themselves. When Officer Keller, the man from 1987 who first heard Help Us, retired in 2005, he agreed to a final interview. He sat in his garage, old police radio beside him, its casing scratched, antenna bent. They told me it was interference, he said softly. But it wasn't. It wasn't like any static I ever heard. He looked away for a moment. You know what the last thing it said to me was? After all those years. He turned the radio dial. A faint crackle filled the air. "We see you." His hand trembled. I wasn't even transmitting. I hadn't touched the mic. He switched it off and never turned it on again. Today, thousands of those radios sit in storage lockers, forgotten. Metal shells holding decades of invisible echoes, trapped frequencies that once carried laughter, panic, orders, last breaths, and maybe, once in a while, on nights heavy with storm and static, when lightning touches the sky just right, they speak again, not to warn, not to haunt, just to be heard. When the world sleeps somewhere, an old police radio might be taking its last breath, in some forgotten locker, on a dusty shelf. That voice still lingers, and maybe, when your radio crackles with static, listen carefully. You might hear that same voice too, because some stories aren't hidden in silence, they're buried deep inside the static. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and explore the rest of our haunting playlists.